I know, we're just relaxing all the time, right? But
I know, just lounge 24/7.
just, just do you ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm? Just lamping.
Just lamping around. That's right.
But that's the goal, right? Of what we're doing is that like we're both, you and I are both women who are seeking a life that we don't need a vacation from.
Ding, 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 ding. 110%. That's 100% been my goal, for, I guess, realistically, and like actually, like lots of people say that, right? And don't necessarily have any idea of how to even begin, where or how to even begin to like make that a reality for them. Yeah. And truthfully, I didn't really either. Not really for much of any other reason other than I just never thought that there was a real world reality in the world that we live in today, that people would enjoy listening to me as much as I enjoy doing it. I didn't grow up in a musician's family where I had like solid feedback, you know what I mean, from a young age. My mom enjoys singing a lot, and that's definitely where I got my voice from. But she never did it other than, you know, singing in choir and in church and stuff like that. And and you know, oh, that sounds nice, honey. That's, you know, the extent, and that's coming from my mom, and she's a real sweet lady, and so we take that with a grain of salt. So,
but it wasn't like you thought that it was a reality that you could actually have any monetary support pursuing music.
No, and I think maybe part of that came rooted from a younger age, or slightly younger age, from my parents. And parents are going to worry about us as long as we're alive and breathing. And once upon a time, I wanted to be an art teacher. I did go to school to be a teacher, inevitably, but I didn't go to school to be an art teacher because the worrisome part of my mom or my parents, and they weren't wrong. You know, when programs get cut in schools, arts are usually the first to go. And so the idea of that always being like a liability and the uncertainty or whatever. And I just, okay, we won't give them any more reason to worry. And now I give them reason all the time. Every day is giving them reason to worry, but like, they'll be fine.
Oh my gosh, she's become a musician.
Yeah, this past year has been a lot of transition, obviously for me, but for all, you know, the people in my immediate circle, obviously my parents especially. It's been a transitionary thing of acceptance and understanding, and we're at a point now where they get it, they believe it, they buy into it, and they've always been exceptionally supportive. I played field hockey for 8 years between high school and college, and I can count on probably 2 hands the number of games that they ever missed. So now that they get it and they're on my side and on my team and not trying to like kindly nudge me in a different direction,
so
it feels really nice.
They see that you're serious and they're like, oh, she's committed. And I mean, I know for sure when I see you and Mo post like a calendar of all the dates, I'm like, hell yeah, like they're not fucking around.
Nope, we're not. We're definitely not. We're definitely not. And I think that actually also, we work very similarly, and at a very similar pace. And so I think that's, among many things, that was one of the things that drew us to start working together pretty quickly.
Yeah. How did you guys, how did Mo and Mary Mac become a duo?
Yeah. So we met, you know, we're both from the same small town, Culpeper. But we didn't really know each other. We didn't know each other growing up. I knew of his sister Hannah, who's my age, and went to school with her for a little bit. But we met officially, I guess somewhere within the last 2 years. I went out to my whole music in public thing as an adult started happening just with me going to karaoke nights at the pier. And I started meeting some musician friends that gave me that, what felt like legitimate feedback, a valid or legitimate feedback, whatever, at the time, and enough confidence to feel like, okay, well, I'll keep, if they want me to do it, I'll keep doing it. And then I stopped by. Yeah, one Wednesday night, it was karaoke. It was always Wednesday night. And I stopped by on my way back. At that time, I was working in Charlottesville, which was quite a commute.
Yeah.
And so and my parents are out in Rixieville, so town was technically kind of on the way home. So I stopped, and Mo was actually doing like kind of an impromptu 2-hour set, mainly to get some video footage for a new song that he was about to release. The Sun Will Rise Again. And I ran into him in the parking lot while he was unloading his stuff. And we said, hey, and we chatted for a minute. And he asked if I was going to stick around and listen. And I said, sure. So that was the first time I heard him play live. I'd already listened and had been listening to his stuff online. That's the first time I heard him play live and sing. And I ended up staying for his whole 2 sets. And then he afterwards promoted, karaoke after, everybody stick around and sing. And he asked if I was going to, he walked over and asked if I was going to sing. And I said, I will, if you will. And he said, okay. And so he got up there and sang Good Directions. And then I got up there and sang Pistol Annie's. And he was like, oh, you can sing, and you've got soul to go with it. Okay. All right. And then that was in like August. And then fast forward to the following January. So like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months later, I started, Jan O'Connor started the open mic night at the pier, and he was begging me to come out and sing. And so I said, I don't like doing anything unprepared. So I said, if you practice with me, if we pick a song and we practice, I'll get up there and sing. And he said, okay. And it took one time, and that was it. Open mic nights turned into paying gigs, and paying gigs just turned into more paying gigs. And then we had Culpeper Palooza, which is coming up in April. Mm-hmm. And Jan's band Soca Loco already was scheduled to have Mo play with them. And so that was actually our first gig together, was at Culpeper Palooza so it was me and Mo and 7 other musicians. It was like a 9-piece band. And it was so fun, and we had so much fun. And he said that day after our set, he said, you should maybe like come join me for some of my gigs and see. He was like, I really like the vibe. And that was pretty much it. We've been doing that ever since.
And you guys just you've just set up your Instagram page, right? You've just launched that.
Yep, we did. We've been talking about it for a while, but we have a constant to-do list that's always getting longer and feels like never shorter. And we just hadn't gotten to it yet. And so then once we went to put our first release out, in order to verify with Spotify, we had to do an Instagram account. And so it just made sense to just go ahead and make the joined one. So yeah, it's pretty small right now, but it's only because we just made it back in February, I think that's right. Yeah.
I'm sure it will grow though. But so I guess what I'm saying is, so you've made the choice now to, you said you were working in Charlottesville. What did you do?
So when I first started my music journey publicly, I'll say, because my music journey has been progressing since I was, a small child. Publicly as an adult, I'm sorry, repeat the question.
What was your 9-to-5 job?
Oh, so I started it was a transition. My last 9-to-5 job, I was actually working in town. I had, thankfully I made the transition to getting from a 9-to-5 that was in Charlottesville to Culpeper, which then freed up my nights and weekends, and 2 hours a day in a car that was just draining me. And I didn't realize I worked that job for like 3.5 years. And so you just you get into this cycle and this routine, and you're just doing the same thing every day, and you're not paying attention to
how you actually
feel. Yep. And I was burnt out. I was burnt out on all of it. The job itself, the drive, I was just burnt out. Yeah. I was like, I at least need to, I was like, if I can't, I need to at least find something. If I'm going to be sitting at a desk from 9-to-5 or whatever, I need to at least find something that's not also having me in my car for 2 hours a day. That I can't do anything else. But what I did do in that 2 hours a day in the car every day was practice and sing and record. And that's when I started recording myself, which was hard at first. But it was just a way for me to fix things and hear what I liked and didn't like. Because as we very well know, and I didn't really know at the time, was that it sounds different to everybody else. It sounds it only sounds the way it sounds to me when it comes out because it's in my head and all of the sounds and the resonance and all, but that's not what it sounds like to everybody else. And yeah, so once I figured that out and started kind of fixing things and working on things and had the time to do that, I honestly feel like I probably did make a decent amount of progress in that 3.5 years in my car. And then I started working at Long and Foster in Culpeper. That was the job that I've had for the last year. And that I just recently left, and I didn't even have to decide to do that. I already had, but we were kind of planning to work through the year with me having it, for most of the year with me having the job, and just kind of making some investments here and there, for, the show and the music and everything. And then, at the beginning of February, at the very beginning of February, we were informed that the office would be closing down and merging with Warrington's office, which is happening with a lot of businesses across the board, it seems. And I wasn't an agent, I was the branch administrator, which is one of the two positions that's attached to the office itself. An agent can go, anywhere. So when the office was eliminated, that effectively eliminated my position as well.
So you were like, oh, I'm so happy.
It's so weird. I didn't say anything. I just sat there. Mm-hmm. Yep. I just sat there. And I had been in the position in a past life, that I had been in a similar situation. And my position was effectively eliminated with no warning. And I remember how terrified and worried and scared and hurt and angry and all of the not great emotions and feelings that I felt that if I think about it hard, I can still feel that like rushing from my head to my toes. And I didn't feel any of that at all. I still haven't, I didn't cry. I'm a crier. If I'm too mad, too upset, too happy, tears just come out. And I didn't. I just, the woman one of the higher ups, one of the bigwigs that came and made the announcement, I had not seen ever come to the office in the 1.5 years that I had worked there already. And so as soon as she walked into the office, I was like, oh, this is probably going to be it. This is the thing. This is about to happen. And then she made the announcement, and I sat there and I just processed it. And that was at like 9:30 in the morning, and I worked till 5. So I just sat with that information by myself and didn't tell anyone, including my partner, all day, because I wanted to really get a good feel for how I was really feeling about it. And like I said, I just didn't get upset. Or worried, really. I just started thinking logically about what this means now and how are we going to transition? And because this just seems like, just like the rest of it, the universe just has impeccable timing and provides even when you think you're not ready or when you are ready. And so, yeah, we were planning, what they say, you make a plan and then somebody's like, oh, you thought you had plans. Yeah. And yeah, that's what it was. We were planning for the end of the year, and then this happened. And so anyways, I sat with that info all day and got to talk to Mo at the end of the day and see how he was feeling about it.
Yeah. How did you tell him? Were you like calm or were you like, oh my God?
So I was still, even from having that information for, basically 8 hours before I talked to him about it, I was still processing it, and I didn't feel, there was still that like part of me, I still feel like this on a fairly regular basis, but that day especially, I was like, this can't be real. Like, we've been talking about this for months. I was still just wrapping my brain around the fact that this was really what was going to happen. And when I told him, his response immediately was like, it's time. It's time. It's the universe telling us it's time. It's time. We'll figure it out. And that's what we're doing.
That's so amazing. I'm just vibing and resonating with everything that you're saying. I know we're on two different paths, but in some way, just
but in a lot of similar ways.
Well, yeah, and I definitely identify with the notion that like everything has to be like, I want it to be planned. I want a solid, I want to know what's going to happen. I'm checking my bank account. I'm checking the credit score. I'm like making sure it's lined up. I'm like, but at the same time, it sounds like we're both, also very drawn to and inspired by that magical, mysterious, like let the universe, like I drive by, there's this, and I'm a very spiritual person, but not necessarily like in a religious, like organized fashion. Um,
Same, same.
but there, I love reading like the little signs on the churches, and like they're inspirational. And there's one that I drive by on my way to Culpeper all the time, and it's like if God is your co-pilot, then you need to switch seats. And I was like, hmm, that's pretty fascinating because I feel like you and I both have trouble like letting go.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because it's like, and then you have to really walk through that idea of like, okay, so what happens if I do just let go and do just count on myself and do count on my creativity? It's like um, you want like a safe zone, like a fallback.
There's so much uncertainty. There's just so much uncertainty that is just part of this gig and part of the stick, right? No matter how much we prepare and how much we plan and how much we try and set ourselves up for success, because that's really essentially what it's boiling down to, right? Whether we're talking about practicing for the show or making sure that, we're paying attention to the finances and we have enough gigs booked and all of the stuff, it's still just the level of uncertainty that's always
That's just life.
attached. It's
That's
just
just life.
right
Yeah.
there. Pain, uncertainty, and hard work are like the three things that we as human beings can count on forever. There are
Yeah.
always going to be things that we do and deal with and go through, and how we've talked about this briefly before, but how we deal and how we cope and how we react, right, is really the only control that we have.
Yeah.
And so I reminded myself of that the day that obviously I got that information, and my reaction was the only thing that I could control. I remind myself that a lot because it's hard. It's hard.
It's now like though it's so freeing, but like you said, then it's like overwhelming. But there's no how do I say it? There's no fallback, right?
Right.
But so
Right.
that makes you go, I need to go 100% all in on this. And boy, is that amazing. And I get the opportunity to do that. Like not many people, I feel like get that opportunity, but not many people give themselves that opportunity. Like I think
Yes.
that you and I in the past couple of years have made the choice to jump out of these really soul crushing 9 to 5 jobs that I think some people, I don't want to say that everybody wants to get out of their 9 to 5 because I don't think that that's true. I
I
think
don't
that
either.
some people are more like in the worker bee zone and some people are not. And I think that
I think that we're not.
Mary Mack is not a worker bee. You're not. And that's not to say that you're afraid of hard work, but it's like
Right. Because
you are a seeker. You seek experience. You seek, different places. I know you want to travel. Like one of your dreams is to get an Airstream or some sort of like gypsy caravan if you could, right?
we
And go
have we have
around.
we have an RV that we're currently looking at.
Yes, I hope you get it. I mean, I think that would be perfect. And like, what's holding you back? Why not?
Right.
It's
Right.
like there's no guarantee, even if there is, even if you do believe or subscribe to like reincarnation or anything like that, this is still the only one time you get to be
This
Mary.
version of me. Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
there's something, I do believe that there are things that like we need to process and work out in this lifetime that perhaps, maybe last lifetime. And it's funny, you said earlier there was a past life situation of this before. I know you were talking about in this version of your life where you said you had
Right.
lost a job, but
Right.
I
Right.
just
Right.
wonder if last time, if there is a reincarnation type of thing, if last time Mary was like, no, I'm going to go find another solid 9 to 5 job that I hate,
I'm
but just so I
sure.
know that on Monday I can get up and go do this.
Right. And that I
But
and yeah.
how much of that do you think is, and I sort of scraped the surface of this in my last interview a bit with when I interviewed Adwella, we were talking about the perceptions of a 9 to 5 job and the perceptions of what it means to be a musician
Mhm.
and that space that we hold for it in our society. How much of that did you encounter growing up when you said, like, so you don't come from a musical household, right?
Right.
But so what did you think of like a musician when you were growing up? Like, what was the person, like, obviously, I think you were entertained by the idea and you liked it from an early age.
Yeah. What about it was drawing to me? I think that even at a young and early age, I was quick to figure out that there aren't that many things as far as career paths or choosing a path for yourself, I guess, that you can participate in actively creating something so magical, so beautiful, and that can bring a room full of completely different people from completely different places. They can even not speak the language, and you can still feel it. And for 4.5 minutes or whatever it is that the song is going, everybody in that room is the same, and can be moved the same way, can I feel open their mind maybe sometimes more and hear things that when they come out as the spoken word, often, and not that music can't be misinterpreted. It means it's open, it's art, it's open for interpretation for everybody, but that's also part of that beauty. And it just seemed like so much fun. And I guess from the youngest age, I was thinking about this earlier, I was trying to think of my first memory or my earliest memory, which I still don't have any idea how I could possibly pinpoint that or on a timeline. But the most frequent and reoccurring memory at a young age that I have is listening to music with my mom and singing music with my mom in the car. She was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was worked and earned money for the family and the household, and she wanted to, and she knew she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom whenever she had kids. She worked up until then, but the amount of joy, just the amount of joy that I could see from her, that I felt listening to different musicians' vocals and artistry, and I just got lost. I could just get lost for hours. And I remember at a fairly young age wishing that or even, probably maybe even later, I probably didn't, this wasn't as early. Later on, probably more in my tween and teen years, I remember wishing that I had parents that were musicians, and so that by that point I had already knew how to play the guitar or the piano or something that would allow me to be able to accompany myself. Because again, I just assumed if I wanted to do this at some point I'm pretty independent. I should start there. I'm firstborn and was an only child for 9 years. And so I don't like relying on anybody or having to rely or depend on anybody. I want to be able to do it all myself. And this was no different. And so the idea that there would be other so incredibly talented and beautiful people and musicians that would want to play with me was just not, I don't know why. It wasn't a thought that I had at that point. And I guess still technically hadn't a couple years ago, because I reached out to Jan, my good buddy and bandmate now, and was like, hey, can you please give me some guitar lessons so that I can start doing the thing that I feel like I'm supposed to be doing.
But what's interesting is when you talk about your first interaction with Mo and you're like, you let that guard down because you were like, I will if you will.
Right.
which is like very unlike what you're telling me about
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so there was a level of safety that you're like, wow, I can collaborate with this other human, this other artist, and feel at home and don't feel like I have to rely on just myself and I can't, be vulnerable. Cause I mean, I definitely feel that too as a firstborn. And I'm like, it's like my Atlas syndrome all the time. I'm like, no, I'll never ask for help. I'll never reach out. If I reached out to you one time for help and you didn't help me, I'm like,
I'm
all right,
not reaching
fine.
back out. Yeah, I'm not following up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But it becomes a very like, guarded place. Like your armor becomes super heavy
Mm-hmm.
until you're like, I just want to put this down. Like, I
Yep.
don't want to do that
This is
anymore. I just want to
exhausting.
be.
Yeah, it's exhausting. It does. You can totally burn and wear yourself out. I've
Yeah.
definitely experienced that in my life.
But so I'm curious, did you ever ask if you like wanted to, like, did you have the opportunity to, I guess you didn't, to have lessons or to take lessons, or that wasn't provided in school?
Mm.
It comes back to that, right? That's a huge thing.
It is
Arts are cut.
Yep. Well, and I will definitely not blame, I will not completely blame the school system. I will take some accountability there because there were certainly options here and there. I do vaguely recall, Clore, the band teacher in high school, having like an acoustic guitar class, I think, by the time I was in high school. But to be honest with you, I don't, I get bored. I don't sit still for very long. You can call it whatever you will, ADHD. If you subscribe, some people don't believe that that's a thing. But I was still figuring out how my brain and my body and my soul all work together. And so when I was a teenager, I started dancing at a local dance studio when I was like in first grade, and I did that until high school. And so there was a dance recital every year. I was always doing something. I played flute in elementary school when you could first join band. I tried saxophone first. That reed was hard as a fifth grader, so I ended up playing flute and did really well at that. And then got to middle school and switched over to chorus and did chorus for 2 years that I was in middle school. I did district chorus and all that fun stuff. And I'm sure I definitely did learn some stuff there. How to hold a harmony, probably. Actually, it would be one of the main things. But after that, I started playing field hockey, and that just completely consumed all of my spare time. And when I find something, that I really enjoy doing and that I like, and that I feel that I am and can be good or great at, I will work exceptionally hard for a long time to make that happen. And that's what I did with field hockey. And so that was it. That was like all of my spare time. And so I wasn't even really thinking about music in the capacity of being a musician. I think once I was a teenager, it was like, at that point, I think I was thinking about it as like, oh, this is a pipe dream of my younger self. And I've missed the train already. I know all these teenagers that are such talented guitarists, and they've been playing for years as it is. And so I'm just so far behind. There's just no way for me to close that gap or even try to put a dent in it. And,
Even though your voice the whole time, think about the whole time that instrument has been growing and,
right.
You've been cultivating that. There's really no playbook for music. There's not a clear script. I think that Mo made a lot of really good decisions and continues to do that. And in terms of setting himself up for, like he went to the Shenandoah Music Conservatory, right?
Sure did.
That's a
huge, right?
step. And I'm just thinking about like how I remember when I interviewed him and he was talking about at some point he had to choose between sports
and the music, right?
Because they were both drawing on him, needing his whole self
right
to commit there.
Right.
And so I guess what I'm getting at for like a larger picture is just trying to understand like the different ways that musicians have gone about creating or cultivating a career in music, because there isn't a guidebook. It's not as clear as other, hey, you're going to become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that. It's very much make it up as you go. And I don't know if that could ever be changed, but I wonder if you ever think about advice that you would give, like at the teenage version of yourself, or like younger girls,
Mm-hmm.
that are like, I don't know, I have this strong passion for it. Because I mean, I felt the same way, and I did grow up in a musical family,
Yeah.
but I'm not like, I don't consider myself an instrumentalist. I can like hack away and play some cowboy chords to like support myself, but I feel like it's my voice. Like I'm relying on my
Right.
voice to do it.
Right.
But for a long time, it took me, I mean, until this past, around the same time you did, to go out and be like, okay, I can do this. And I do feel a positive reaction from people. I am changing lives. And I know that sounds kind of vain to say, but you felt it. You connect with people on a level that is, supra linguistic. Like it's like you said, you don't have to even speak the same language. And
Nope.
that's really powerful and that's valid. And I just, as I'm thinking about, like, I have young children, I'm thinking about, whether I want to homeschool them or what,
Mm-hmm.
and not to be like the weird parent that's like, I don't want my kids to be like going to public school. But I
Mm,
mean, there's a certain level of indoctrination that is like, I don't want them to miss out on the social aspect or the sports aspect.
right.
Because like you said, that's a good way
I will.
to connect with your body.
Yep. I will say, and that's something that we both have in common that I'm sure factors into how we work so well together, but we both were, were great athletes,
Yeah.
at our chosen sports, and really, really enjoyed it. And we're really, really passionate about it. And we're good examples of teammates that you would want to have. And I remember our experience in athletically, our stories definitely changed, once we got to college. Like we both had a fairly similar, I feel like, high school experience. But I had an exceptional college coach. I love to this day all of my teammates that I had. I would, there's, no, not now, but there was a part of me, if you'd asked me a couple years ago, I would go back and redo those 4 years just so that I could play again. Because field hockey is one of those sports that you, unless you're planning on being an Olympian, and even still, you got to have a job in between. So got to pay the bills. So, yeah, I enjoyed it so much. And I learned so much, though. I learned so much about myself, about working cohesively as a unit with other people. And that transcends athletics. Those are lessons and life lessons that I hold near and dear and valuable for eternity, all of time. And I do feel like advice, as far as advice I've given, that just do it. If you enjoy it, if you love it, do it. Just do it. I remember a time not too long ago that just having a microphone in front of my face would make my voice so shaky that I felt like I couldn't control it. That's not a thing anymore. And it's just
Because you've done it. You've approached
because I
it.
just kept doing
You
it.
learned that from sports, though.
Right.
You learned that from sports.
Right.
And it makes me wonder, like, how much of that feeling of like you have to choose, and I'm not saying you don't have to have choices in your life, because
Right.
you obviously do,
Sure.
but like how many different, because it's funny, I've heard, a mutual friend of ours, Paul Rogers, has always commended both you and Mo, and I think Tanner too, because he's a PE teacher, right?
Yes.
The three of you and your background in sports, he was saying that that's such a commanding presence for you, and how you approach music as a job, and not just, the creative aspect of it, but like, hey, I'm going to line this up and I'm going to get this done. This is how we're going to execute this.
Yep.
And I just wonder how much of that, like, could help kids, like the overlap, instead of like, hey, you have to choose.
Right. No, I completely agree. If there has got to be a better way to, right, be able to incorporate and not make it this choice that kids have to make at some point in school.
And that makes it seem like music, because that's really also what I'm getting at, is it really makes it seem like music is the I think I remember, and we'll have to ask Mo when he watches this. I think I remember during that interview as well, he was talking about that some people are kind of like, oh, I can't believe you're giving up sports
Yeah,
for
yep,
music.
yep,
There's always this,
yep.
and even with the idea of like a real job and leaving the 9 to 5, there's always this level of like, oh, well, that's not going to work
Right.
type of
Yep.
thing that I just despise so much. And I don't know how to bridge that gap for people other than people just being exposed to musicians who are doing the actual work,
Right.
and not just being like, okay, yeah, you're like Taylor Swift who, whatever, however you feel about her. Her dad was like one of the top, people at like GM Motors or something. So of course he could set her up in a nice way.
Right.
And then people are like, oh, it's all luck. I'm like, it's not
It's
just luck.
definitely not just luck. Definitely not just luck. But I definitely believe, and now that I've been doing this now for we're in March. It's been a year that I started.
You've made great headway. Can I just say that?
Thank
Like
you.
great headway for a year.
Thank you very much. I do. I know you said earlier about working hard. My partner will tell you, I'm a hard worker and I always have been. And, it took me a while to give myself that credit. But the overlap of athletics and music, I very quickly was able to see what a difference that makes. Because we'll go back to the fact that I don't currently play anything well enough to be able to accompany myself. I started out doing this publicly with bandmates and at open mic nights. And there's all kinds of different musicians that show up every week. And I have no idea. And I mean, I insisted with Paul and Jan once I officially agreed and they asked that we at least have to get together like once a week. I know you guys have been doing this for years and your practices, your shows, but I can't starting out right now. Like I need a few hours with you guys once a week just at the very least to be able to learn my place in the songs with you guys.
Yeah.
So that I don't sound bad.
Well, so you get to know each other too.
Yeah.
There's like a second nature, and you know that from playing with Mo now
Mhm.
for the time that you guys have.
Mhm.
There's you play together enough that it's not even about the practicing of the notes
Right.
so much as just like
How it works together.
yeah.
Yep.
The unison
Yep.
that's happening.
Yep.
And that's something sports gave you for sure, right? It's how to be a team player, to show up,
Yeah.
to, and maybe that's something that like can be spoken of as like a lot of musicians find. I don't think I don't know what the percentage is, but like a lot of musicians find their way as like, oh, I did band, and then now I'm a musician. I think that more often than not is not the way. And what you find is like musicians, being like the anti-culture and outside of school in a way that's very relaxed and chill and whatever stoner-esque. I'm not downing that at all. I'm just saying that that's a little bit less like a job that then makes it so antithetical to actually showing up. So then the idea of, and I've encountered this with a lot of musicians too, is like the idea of practicing is like it's a big turnoff for them instead of like, no, it's actually really
It's
fun.
super
and
fun.
We'll get a lot done.
And we're gonna have so much fun.
But you know what I
Yes.
mean? It becomes like homework.
It becomes like work,
people
right?
Are like, like they're like, I don't want to.
I gotta bring all my stuff and set up and do blah, blah. Yeah. And
you're like, you mean you get to do what you love?
I'm like, what do you mean? We get to come together and make magic. Like that's.
But I think that comes out of the counterculture of like, well, we're just going to play in somebody's garage and, some mom is going to tell us to like
keep it down
after this time or whatever, instead of like encouraged at a level of like, these kids are really gifted, and there's a real, possibility of them doing this, as a career path instead of like, shut up and get a real job.
Right. And so I will, on that note, I'm going to give credit where credit is due because that person for me was definitely Jan O'Connor.
How did you meet? So you met him through the,
I met him actually. He was at the pier at a karaoke night that I was singing at he was like, Jan has a good ear. Jan has a good ear for music. And he was like, you should be doing that more. Um, and that idea, he didn't give up on that idea. And every time I saw him, he made a point to say something to that effect. And
Did you take it seriously at first?
at first, no, I'm sure I didn't. I'm sure I laughed it off and was like, yeah, right, okay, sure.
But it's like funny, why would he take the time? It's like we should learn by now that like when people are giving you a compliment, they're giving you a compliment. Like people don't just give compliments. They
Right,
usually say the opposite.
right. And it's hard. I'm working on it, but it's I don't know where exactly it roots from. It's hard for me to accept compliments.
Me too.
And I'm really working on it. Because I put myself in a position now where I hear them more often. And also, like I said, nobody ever told me that I wasn't good enough. There was never a person in my life physically that was like, it was all here. It was all up here. When I think about all of the reasons that I had come up with, like those hadn't ever come from a choir, a chorus teacher or an instructor or a voice coach of any kind. It was all stuff, negative self-talk that had come from my own brain and psyche, and that your voice isn't unique enough. There's new music, incredible, beautiful music that's made every day. It's just going to be white noise. There's absolutely no point. Nobody's going to enjoy listening to it as much as you enjoy doing it. All of those things. Nobody ever said that to me, but me. So when I first met Jan and he first started planting that seed, I was still in the midst of a lot of healing, and trying to figure out how to love myself more. And
how do you do that now? What are your affirmations?
That I am, there's so many. I am deserving of all of this. I have worked hard my whole life at lots of different things. And this thing was the first thing I ever enjoyed that ever brought me joy, that I did, that ever brought me joy. And why I spent so many years trying to find something else that was more, that I thought, or that my parents thought, or whoever, that was going to be more sustainable or more reliable or more lucrative or whatever the thing was. I've had so many jobs, and it's not because I can't keep one. It's because I get bored and burn out, and I'm a hard worker, and I'll figure out the best way for me to do something, and I will do that, and I will continue to do that. And then at a certain point, you know, kind of like when you're taking a hike, you look up and you're like, I came a long ass way and I wasn't even paying attention. And so I kind of got to a point that I was just trying to like boil things down. Like, let's get rid of, there's a lot of extra stuff in our world and our lives. And I was just trying to narrow it down, boil it down. Let's figure out at the very most simple, basic level, what things, we don't need to go into why, but I had spent time in a relationship with somebody for so long that I had just totally lost sight of myself and any ambitions or idea. Thinking about the future just in general gave me all kinds of stress and anxiety. The future was not something that I was excited about. And I was just trying to very basically figure out a way to change that and alter my mindset about that. And what can I be doing on a fairly daily basis, on a regular basis, that will bring me joy? And music and singing was very, very quickly the answer. And so that was where the karaoke nights started. And
it's so funny because you like I said, you've come so far. So like you've had so many jobs, you've poured yourself 110% or more into all these different positions and still felt unfulfilled. And then you do the one thing that like you're meant to do and you are like leaps and bounds where you've been in like what, probably like a
Yeah.
decade? Like, be
Yeah.
honest. Like, you've made more progress in the past 12 months than you have in 10
Yep.
years. Because you, instead of like going to different doors and like being like, oh, this is shut, oh, this is, or this isn't taking me down, this down a winding hallway or whatever it is, you walked through like the one door that's
Mm-hmm.
open.
Yep. And I just wish I would like to answer your question earlier. If I was to be sitting here with, I don't know what age version of myself, maybe teenage version, and be able to tell myself, like, just be kinder. Just be kinder to yourself. That's not for anybody else, because I'm pretty nice and pretty kind to everybody. I am my, and I think this is true for most people. Like, we're all our own worst critic and biggest critic. But I'm like really nice to everybody else compared to how I could be to myself.
So like, if you talk to somebody else the way you
if I could be
as
nice to myself as I could be to everybody else, like, it just didn't make sense. Like, when I stopped and just to like logically think about things, it just didn't make sense. And yeah, so I just started going out to karaoke nights and doing my thing and just doing it and thinking about it less and just doing it. And probably the athlete and coach, I might have said this, after I played 8 years of field hockey, I coached field hockey for another 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
So I have experience from both sides of that coin, and the transition from one to the other. And I just remember putting myself in that like coach or athlete mode and being like, this is just a thing. This is just a thing that humans do every day. And just like anything else, you just have to do it. You just have to start doing it. It doesn't have to be great. And it doesn't have to be great because this isn't the one and only and last time that you're going to do it. You're going to keep doing this. And you're going to keep doing this. And it's going to get better every time. And that was the conversation I remember having with myself about the nerves with the microphone at first. And very quickly that wasn't an issue anymore. And it's just been one thing, after another that I've been working on, and we're here now. But I do feel like, and I wish there was a way, and hope that one day there will be a way for kids to be able to actively pursue music and athletics, because they're both so beneficial. And truly, I've said this, I know I've said it to Mo and a couple of my other bandmates, but the banding, right? Because not all musicians are in a band. That's a whole other beast. And banding, as Jan would say, is like herding cats. And it's hard because it's not just you, and you do have to rely on other people, and you do have to know and understand and feel it and all of the things. But I don't know, after running countless miles in August humidity and heat with 10 plus other girls on a field trying to get a ball this size into a cage at the other end of the field, singing with all of the incredibly talented musicians that I was afforded to sing and play with very quickly. Jan connected me and got me to play with, he said this himself. He was like, I'd say in the last like 5 weeks, you probably played with 20 different incredibly talented and well-known musicians locally. And he was 100% right. Part of my ability to be able to do that as well as I could at that point, 100% came from my teamwork background and athletic background, and all of the mental toughness, I guess, if you'd want to say that, and how well I was able to learn how I work and what I need and how to ask that of other people. At the very, like I said, just basically starting with the, hey, Jan and Paul, can we get together on Tuesdays and play for a couple hours?
Would you ever consider doing some sort of coaching like that yourself? Like an overlap between like sports and music?
Sure.
I don't know how that would look.
Yeah, I don't know how that would look right
would,
now either. But again, back to the uncertainty, each year, as I can already tell, is going to look different. And so, sure, years from now, yeah, there's a part of it. Somebody asked me, might have been Mo, asked me if I ever miss teaching, or coaching. There are days, moments, probably more like moments, that I do. Most of the time I don't, though. And I feel like that's probably because even though I was good at it, it wasn't the thing. And so I was still pouring myself into it as if it was. And also transitioning directly from, because there was no in between time. I went directly from being a college athlete to being a high school teacher and a JV field hockey coach the next year. And so that transition from player to coach, I found pretty difficult. I can imagine. So there's a part of me that says maybe not. But just like anything else, if the circumstances were right and the timing was right, maybe.
So I know we talked about earlier planning, and you make plans, and then
Yep. And
the
then
universe has its own plans. But so if you what do you have? I've got a few minutes here, but I want to bring our audience members into a little bit of like your idea of what you have, what you do have planned coming up, and what people can look forward to hearing from Mary Mac and from Mo and Mary Mac. And then two, what you want to do, like not just what you had planned, but what if you could plan something and have it manifest, what would that be?
So this year for 2023, we're predominantly booked up throughout the DMV. We have a couple trips here and there, like we'll be in Wilmington in North Carolina for like probably most of the first half of July. And we have some shows booked down there we're excited about. We've got most of our weekends pretty filled. We were at, where were we last night? We were at Old Trade last night. It was great. But the hope is that for 2024, we'll have figured out a way to, and have booked it out at least enough that we can just kind of drive or start down in Florida and play beaches all the way up the East Coast. I'm a beach girl. I'm happy you're near water. So is Mo. So that's helpful. And yeah, music and the beach. Like we went to North Carolina last year and played a few shows, and I was just absolutely in heaven. I don't think I stopped smiling all week. Like I was just I told him, I was like, I don't know. I'm trying to think about what could make this better. I'm having trouble. So yeah, just being near the water, playing beach, bars or whatever sounds great. But planning for the future, ideally, I want to play at festivals. Like I want to be on bigger stages and be able to. Festival's a whole vibe, right? And yeah, just so much fun. I mean, that's the whole thing. And he would tell you the same thing, is that people ask us all the time, we're just having fun. Like, we're just having fun. That's what we always say. We're just having fun. And we are, and we do every day, which is like, God, what a blessing. Just that in and of itself. And I said it, because there's some shows or places, especially, and bear in mind, he's been doing this longer than I have. He's been plugging away and doing the thing longer than I have. And so there's some shows where he's just like, I can just tell maybe he's like, I'm just not like, I couldn't get in I couldn't get in the vibe or the whatever. And, excuse me, a lot of times I'm just like, we get to do this.
I love that you said that earlier. You get another chance
to do this. And I say that to myself also when I'm on, because I'm not gonna lie to you, the social media thing it's not my shtick. Never has been. You can go back and look at my Instagram before I was a musician, and I probably have the same number of posts that I've made in the last year since I have, but I know it's like it's just a nature of the beast, and it's a particular part of this that I have to remind myself I get to do. I get to make this post. I get to tell everybody that we're playing on Saturday. I get to tell everybody that we have new merch that they can get. I get to tell that's what it is. It's not I have to. It's not I have to. I don't have to. I get to do this. I'm blessed and thankful and grateful every day that I get to do this. And I think that goes a really long way. Because again, uncertainty every day is different. I'm sitting at this desk every day from 9 to 5, and I know I have this checklist of things I have to do to, okay, you're now working with, on a day-to-day basis.
You're working for yourself.
Right. And what do your days look like? How are you going to be productive enough to be keeping this train moving? And that hasn't been nearly as difficult as, again, I had made it out to be in my head. So.
We've got the merch, and so tell me a little bit about the merch and Satisfy.
Yeah, so just kind of goes along with everything else that we've been talking about. I spent so much time doing things that did not at all, as far as jobs and just on a day-to-day basis. And so when we were trying to come up with something, a statement or something that we felt like is just so easily relatable, and that again, a lot of people, especially so many worker bees, don't necessarily take the time to stop and think about what can I do for me that will satisfy my soul in some degree, and it can be different things every day, but something, because I had gotten to a point of where I had nothing that was giving me that. And so, that's what we landed with. Satisfy your soul. It seems like I
love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Only good things can come from that. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so authentic, and it's just follow your inner,
whatever that means for you, whatever that means for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've got Take Care is out on all streaming platforms and has been for a few weeks now. And you guys are releasing more all the time. Any plans for a full length album, or are you guys just going to keep with the singles?
By the end of this year, technically it's like a waterfall release. So every song that comes out, we have a new song coming out every month. And so by the end of this year, there will be, I think 11 since we started in February. Yeah. So there will be an 11 song album together. By the end of this year, and a music video to go with each. And so those two things, combined with him also doing the same for his own self as well, keeps us pretty busy every week of every month. Whether we're getting music video footage or we're mixing and recording, he's working on the video that we're putting out tomorrow for our most recent release, Same Kind of Crazy, which was just came out this past Monday. We do. We have new stuff coming out every month, and we're really excited about it. And I'm just really grateful and really happy to be where I am, and excited for what feels like in my adult life the first time. Excited, really genuinely excited. And not only am I excited, but I'm so excited that I'm planning for it, because of what we were talking about earlier. I just want us to be as successful as we possibly can every step of the way. And so that's what we're planning and preparing for.
Oh, I think you just exude happiness, and thank you so much I'm grateful that you had this talk with me today. And I feel like not only is it incredible content, but we saw each other through these screens. I really feel like we connected at a soul level, and I really appreciate that. And you were super vulnerable and telling me, there were some times where I was about to cry.
Yeah, me too. There was one time, me too. I was like, okay, keep that together. Hold that together.
But I'm like, I think gratitude is the key, and being so grateful. And I wish you all the
Thank
success.
you. You too. You're just such a bright light. such a bright light, for all people, women especially, such a bright light.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see you out live.
Yeah, I know. Maybe one day, what you know what we need to do, and Paul and I were talking about this, is we need to actually get all of our music friends together and play.
Oh my God, yes, please.
Like we just need to do it. Like we don't need to wait for somebody else.
No, we just need to do it. I agree. That's
Yeah.
also one of the themes of this conversation. Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so nice.
Right, thank you. All right,
you too. Take care.